Hey, before you dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button. This is one story you won't want to miss. My name is Ethan, I'm 32, and what I'm about to tell you is something I never imagined I'd be able to talk about without feeling like I was losing my mind. I live a quiet life in the outskirts of a small town in Oregon, working as an IT consultant. Most nights I keep to myself, staring at screens, scrolling through news, or occasionally hiking in the nearby woods. That night, everything changed, and I still can't fully wrap my head around it. It was late, maybe around 11:30 p.m., and I had just finished a long shift at a client's office. I decided to take the back road home, the one that cuts through the thick forest just beyond the river. It's usually deserted, quiet except for the wind and the occasional hoot of an owl. I like the solitude. It helps me clear my mind. As I was driving, I noticed a strange glow through the trees on the right side of the road. At first, I thought it was a streetlight from the main highway, but as I got closer, it wasn't stationary, and its color kept shifting: green, blue, and then a harsh white. My pulse quickened. I slowed down, trying to make sense of it, when the car engine suddenly stuttered. The dashboard lights flickered. My phone, which was fully charged moments ago, went dead. The glow was closer now, hovering just above the tree line, moving silently, impossibly fast. I remember gripping the steering wheel, trying to rationalize what I was seeing. It looked like a disc, metallic, but with a surface that seemed to ripple as if it were made of liquid metal. Then, as I blinked, it was right above my car. The air around me felt wrong. It wasn't just cold or warm, it was a pressure, like the space around me was being pulled, stretched. And then I couldn't move. My arms felt heavy, my legs like lead. The last thing I remember before everything went white was hearing this low hum, vibrating through my bones, through the car, through me, and then nothing. When I woke up, I wasn't in my car. I wasn't even outside. The light had disappeared, replaced by a soft, pale glow that seemed to emanate from everywhere at once. I was lying on a surface that was impossibly smooth, almost like glass but warmer. I tried to sit up, but my body didn't respond properly. It was like I was conscious, but my muscles were disconnected from my mind. The room, or whatever this place was circular, the walls seamless, curving upward until they blended with the ceiling. There were no corners, no doors I could see, just this endless, pale glow. Then I noticed them, figures tall and thin, their heads elongated, their skin a pale gray with a slight shimmer, almost like liquid silver. Their eyes were large, black, reflective, and they didn't have mouths in the way we do. They moved gracefully, silently, surrounding me. Panic surged, but it was muted, almost unreal, like a dream where you know you're in danger but can't fully feel it. One of them extended a slender limb. I assume it was an arm, and touched my forehead. I don't remember pain, but a wave of images flooded my mind. Memories, not my own, or perhaps distorted fragments of my own life mixed with places I've never been, things I've never seen. I couldn't speak, couldn't move, but I understood them. Their thoughts were clear, structured, methodical. They weren't hostile, they were curious, observing, studying. I don't know how long I was there. Time had no meaning. Seconds could have been hours, hours could have been days. Occasionally, I would catch glimpses of other rooms or sections through the walls. They were doing things, studying objects, glowing spheres floating midair, and sometimes they were looking at me, always watching. I wanted to scream, to fight, but the moment I tried, I realized that resistance was pointless. I don't even know if it was physically impossible or if my mind was simply too slow to act. Then came the memory tests, I guess you could call them. Every time they touched me, images would flash. Scenes from my childhood, places I had visited, strangers' faces. I felt like they were piecing together my consciousness, trying to understand who I was. But it wasn't invasive in a violent sense. It was clinical, systematic, and strangely intimate. I remember a moment when I actually felt sadness, not for myself, but for them. There was this loneliness in their way of thinking, as if they had existed for eons, but without understanding emotion as we experience it. Then the light changed again, brighter this time, and a new figure appeared. This one was different, smaller, less elongated, with a slight translucence in its skin, almost human-like. It didn't move with the others. Instead, it observed me, tilting its head, as if trying to communicate without words. And somehow, I knew it was trying to reassure me, to tell me I wouldn't be harmed. I wanted to believe it, but fear was instinctual, deeper than reason. And then the hum returned, low and vibrating, and I was back in my car, or at least it felt like I was. The forest outside looked normal, the headlights illuminating the asphalt, but something was different. I wasn't sure if it was hours later or days. My watch had stopped. My phone flickered to life, notifications piling up, but none of it felt real. My heart was racing, my hands shaking uncontrollably. I kept driving home, but I knew I wasn't the same. Something in my mind had changed, something that I couldn't articulate. That night, I couldn't sleep. Shadows in my room seemed heavier. I kept hearing that hum, faint but persistent, in the back of my skull. And then I noticed something else. The dreams or memories, I don't know which, started. Not nightmares exactly, but visions of places I've never been, things I've never seen, figures moving just beyond the corner of my eye. I could feel them watching. The next few days were a blur. I tried to return to normal life, going to work, talking to friends, scrolling through my usual feeds, but everything felt off. My senses were sharper, my mind racing faster, yet simultaneously foggy in strange ways. I would be sitting at my desk, typing code, and suddenly feel like I was recalling something I'd never learned, places I'd never visited. At first, I thought it was stress or sleep deprivation, but the feeling persisted. The dreams, or whatever they were, became more vivid. Every night, the same pale glow, the same figures, moving around me, studying, observing, as if cataloging something beyond my comprehension. Sometimes I woke up with marks on my wrists or faint impressions on my skin, like I had pressed against something hard in my sleep. I began documenting everything, taking notes, recording video on my phone, thinking maybe if I had evidence, I could make sense of it. None of it seemed fake when I looked at it. It was raw, immediate, and terrifying. I didn't dare show anyone, though. Who would believe me? My friends would think I'd lost it, my family would worry, and I couldn't risk being labeled insane. Then, 3 nights later, it happened again. I had just fallen asleep, exhausted from days of paranoia and overthinking, when the familiar hum returned. Only this time, it wasn't subtle. The vibration in my skull was almost painful, and before I could react, the world around me warped again. 1 second, I was in my bedroom. The next, I was standing in a chamber that looked similar to the first, but different. The surfaces glowed faintly, bluish this time, and the air was warmer, almost humid. The figures were there, surrounding me, but now there were more of them, moving in coordinated patterns. It was as if they were rehearsing something, preparing me for an event I couldn't yet comprehend. The smaller figure, the one that had seemed more human-like, approached me again. This time, it reached for my hand, and when I allowed it, an image flooded my mind. A vast, star-filled expanse, colossal ships moving silently in formation, worlds I had never imagined. And then, a question, not spoken aloud, but clear in thought. "Will you help us?" My response was instinctive fear. I don't understand. I can't. But the emotion they projected was patient, almost pleading. They didn't demand compliance. they offered a choice. Then, as abruptly as it started, I was back in my room. My body was drenched in sweat, heart pounding, but I wasn't physically harmed. I realized then that whatever had taken me, whatever was observing me, it wasn't purely malicious. But neither was it entirely benign. It was alien in every sense of the word. Over the next week, I noticed subtle changes in myself. My perception of time shifted. Hours could pass in what felt like minutes, or minutes could stretch into eternity. My hearing picked up frequencies I never noticed before. High-pitched sounds, faint mechanical hums in the distance, birdsong with sharp clarity. Even my vision seemed enhanced. I could see small details on walls, the texture of leaves, distant objects with unusual precision. I tried to keep a journal, but words often failed me. How could I describe what wasn't supposed to exist? I began venturing into the forest again, retracing the road where it all started, trying to understand if there were patterns, signs, or triggers for the abductions. That's when I started seeing them. Not in my dreams, not in visions, but physically. Briefly, at the edge of the trees, a shimmer in the air, almost invisible, like heat waves rising from asphalt. Shadows that moved unnaturally. Each time I thought I was imagining it, the feeling of being watched intensified. One evening, I parked near the river and sat in my car, hoping to catch something, anything, to explain this madness. The sun had set, and the woods were silent except for the rustle of leaves. And then, a soft glow appeared over the river. Not a blinding disk this time, but a subtle, pulsating light, moving with purpose. My stomach dropped. I knew it was them. I stepped out, hands raised slightly, and it stopped. For a moment, I could feel its awareness, scanning me. Then, the hum returned, low and resonant, and a mental image overwhelmed me. A corridor, longer than any building on Earth, walls lined with panels, soft blue light, figures moving deliberately, and me walking beside them, unafraid, accepted. I stumbled back into the car, my mind reeling, my body shaking uncontrollably. That night, I didn't sleep at all. The following days were even stranger. It wasn't just dreams or sightings. Objects in my apartment started moving subtly, items slightly displaced, notes I hadn't written appearing on my desk. I tried rational explanations, wind, pets, human error, but deep down, I knew it was them testing me, preparing me. And then, I started hearing the voice. Not audible, but clear, insistent in thought. You are ready. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't a command. It was instruction. And suddenly, I understood. Whatever they were, whatever they wanted, it involved me in a way I couldn't yet articulate, but couldn't resist either. Fear mingled with fascination. A week later, the hum returned at the edge of sleep, stronger than ever. My body felt weightless, my surroundings blurred, and I felt myself being drawn upward, outward, away from everything I had known. I opened my eyes, expecting the ceiling of my bedroom, and instead saw stars, a vast, open void, and the soft light of their presence surrounding me. Floating in the void was the most surreal experience I've ever had. There was no floor, no ceiling, no up or down. Only the soft pulsating light and the hum vibrating through every fiber of my being. I could feel my heartbeat, but it was different, slower yet stronger, resonating with some rhythm that wasn't entirely my own. The figures appeared again, surrounding me in a formation I could not comprehend, but instinctively understood. They didn't touch me this time. Instead, they moved with me, guiding me through the emptiness. And then the vision came, one so vivid that it almost made me forget where I was. I saw planets spinning in perfect orbits, colossal ships silently gliding past stars, strange landscapes that defied gravity, waterfalls flowing upward, and forests that glowed faintly in colors I could not name. The smaller, human-like figure appeared at my side, and this time, I felt a warmth radiating from it. It was trying to communicate something, an emotion, a memory, a purpose, and suddenly, I understood a fragment of what they were. They were explorers, observers, collectors of knowledge and life, in ways that didn't always make sense to human morality but had a pattern, a method, a reason. I wasn't being punished or experimented on in a cruel way. I was being recruited in a sense, or at least prepared. Then came the sensation of being tested. Images flashed in my mind, faster than I could process, but I absorbed them instinctively. Alien languages, symbols, maps of star systems, sequences of numbers that made sense in some unknown logic. I could feel my brain adapting, rearranging synapses to comprehend what was impossible moments ago. Panic rose, but alongside it came awe. I wasn't afraid of them anymore. I feared losing this understanding, this connection. Time, again, became meaningless. I felt like I had existed in that space for weeks, months perhaps, though only hours had passed in reality. And then, abruptly, the vision shifted. I was back in a chamber, but different than before. This one was larger, almost cathedral-like, with suspended spheres that emitted soft music-like vibrations. The figures stood at various points, waiting, observing. One of them moved toward me with a sphere in its hand, or appendage. I couldn't call it anything human, and placed it gently before me. Instinctively, I reached out, and as I touched it, a cascade of images, sounds, and knowledge poured into my mind. I saw my life from birth to the present, but interlaced with other possibilities. Timelines where decisions diverged, worlds where humanity had evolved differently, some peaceful, some destroyed. I understood that this was what they wanted me to see. Perspective, understanding, awareness beyond my human limitations. The experience was overwhelming. I wanted to resist, to pull away, but my mind knew it would be wasted effort. Instead, I focused on understanding, absorbing as much as I could. The smaller figure hovered beside me, almost like a teacher, guiding, ensuring I could process without being crushed by the sheer volume of input. It was exhausting, but not painful, more like intense mental exercise, stretching parts of my mind I didn't know existed. And then, a thought formed, clear and urgent. You must remember this. You must share it. Not as proof, not as evidence, but as a record, as a message. And suddenly, I understood the purpose of my abduction. It wasn't merely observation. It was preparation. I wasn't a subject. I was a conduit, a witness, someone chosen to carry knowledge back to a world that wouldn't yet understand it. The next moment, I was back in my car, the familiar road stretching ahead under the dim light of dawn. The forest was still, silent, but I could feel it differently. I was different. My senses remained heightened, my mind still humming with fragments of visions I couldn't fully explain. I drove home in silence, trying to collect my thoughts. When I entered my apartment, everything felt familiar, yet alien. My belongings, the walls, the floor, they were the same, but the memories, the knowledge, the awareness, they were not. And then, I began noticing changes in subtle ways. I could read faster, understand complex problems instantly, remember details I had no reason to recall. My dreams were now windows, doorways, into the chamber, into the stars, into understanding that stretched beyond Earth. But alongside this gift came fear. Not of them, but of humanity. Could I ever share this? Could anyone understand it? I tried telling fragments to friends, carefully, indirectly, and the reactions ranged from skepticism to alarm. Even when I showed evidence of the marks, the strange readings on my devices, the odd recordings of light anomalies in the woods, most people dismissed it as coincidence, hallucination, or mental instability. And perhaps that was part of the plan. To carry this burden alone, to experience it privately, yet internally changed forever. I started to notice patterns in the nights. Glows at the edge of the forest, fleeting shadows, hums in the distance. They were still here, watching, guiding, waiting for the moment I was ready to act on the knowledge they had given me. Then came the first real choice. One night, as I sat by my window, staring at the familiar constellations, the hum returned. Louder this time. I felt it in my chest, my skull, my fingertips, and the light appeared in the sky, just above the treetops, pulsating, inviting. I felt my body respond before my mind could even process it. Something inside me, a memory, a fragment of their teaching, told me that if I stepped outside, if I allowed myself to go, I would understand more, see more, experience more than I ever could alone. Fear surged, but it was tempered by curiosity, by an instinctual trust one had developed. I opened the door, stepping into the cool night air. The glow enveloped me, and for the first time I didn't resist. And then, once again, I was lifted, rising above the trees, above the roads, carried by a force beyond comprehension, toward the unknown. As I floated upward, weightless and silent, the familiar hum now a deep, resonant vibration through my entire body, I realized that the fear I had carried for so long had transformed into a strange clarity. The void stretched infinitely, yet there was direction, purpose, a current guiding me forward. I could sense them, the figures around me, moving in harmony with the light, and though they were alien in every sense, there was an undeniable intelligence, a patience, a careful deliberation in their motion. Then I saw it. A colossal vessel hovering above the planet, almost too massive to comprehend. Its surface shimmered with reflective panels, and the glow I had come to recognize emanated from countless points along its hull. The sight was awe-inspiring, terrifying, yet serene. It was not designed to threaten, but to exist, to observe. Inside the vessel, the environment was familiar yet expanded. The chamber stretched beyond perception, filled with instruments I could not name, spheres of light rotating in intricate patterns, and figures moving with precision. The smaller, human-like figure approached me, and I felt its presence, not just in sight, but in thought. It projected a concept I could grasp. This was not merely an abduction. It was an initiation. I had been chosen not because of skill or intelligence, but because of my openness, my capacity to observe, remember, and learn. They had prepared me for something I had yet to fully understand, a role bridging the unknown and the known. They guided me to a central area, where a platform hovered slightly above the ground. I felt a pull to step onto it, and as I did, the spheres of light arranged themselves around me, forming patterns that resonated with my mind. Images, sensations, knowledge, they flooded me simultaneously, yet not painfully. I saw distant planets, advanced civilizations, technologies that defied earthly physics. I sensed patterns in human history I had never understood, events that seemed chaotic now revealing themselves as part of a larger design. But amidst all this information, I felt their intention clearly. They were not here to dominate or destroy. They sought awareness, exchange, preservation. And in some way, I was the vessel through which that exchange could begin. Hours, days, or perhaps only moments passed. I had no way to measure time. Then came the final test. A choice was laid before me, not spoken, but understood. I could remain here, with them, learning, traveling, experiencing realities beyond human comprehension, but leaving behind my life, my family, everything familiar. Or I could return, carrying fragments of what I had learned, altered in ways I could not yet articulate, burdened by knowledge that could change me, yet still tethered to earth. I hesitated. Desire and fear warred within me. Curiosity beckoned. Loyalty, love, memory anchored me. The smaller figure observed patiently, radiating something that felt like encouragement, not coercion. And I understood I was not being forced. I had always had this choice. I made my decision. The hum intensified, enveloping me, and I felt the vessel release me. The stars blurred, the sensation of movement stretching and compressing at once, until suddenly I was back on Earth. My feet touched the grass outside my apartment, dew clinging to my shoes, the air smelling faintly of pine and wet earth. Everything was the same, yet different. The glow in the sky, the hum in the distance, still faintly present, but receding. I was alone, and yet I carried a memory, a resonance, a fragment of something far beyond human comprehension. It was overwhelming, frightening, and exhilarating all at once. In the days that followed, life resumed in appearance, but I was changed. I noticed patterns in the world, small connections, details that others missed. I found myself awake in the middle of the night, staring at the stars, feeling their presence, remembering the corridors, the chambers, the vessels of light. And I understood that my life would never be ordinary again. I began documenting everything. My experience, my visions, my memories. Not as proof, who could believe it, but as a record, a testament, a way to make sense of the impossible. I knew I would never forget the hum, the light, the figures watching, waiting. And though fear lingered, it was tempered by awe and understanding. I had been touched by something beyond comprehension, and it had chosen me to carry a piece of that awareness back to a world unprepared to fully receive it. Sometimes at night, when the sky is clear, I see a faint shimmer over the horizon, a glow that moves silently, almost imperceptibly, and I smile because I know that it is them, watching, guiding, waiting for the moment the world might be ready. And I am ready too, in a way I never could have imagined. I have become something more than I was, tethered to earth yet connected to the infinite. And I carry their message in the subtle patterns of thought, in the dreams that never fully fade, in the quiet, unshakable awareness that the universe is far more alive, far more mysterious, and far more interconnected than I had ever believed possible.